What's up, Guff Gang? All right. Joey Marino here from Grown Up Fantasy Football. It's week 17. It's time to do some start sit questions live here for you guys. Some of you guys might be in your championships. Hopefully you are. Hopefully you made it that far. Congratulations to you if you did. If you didn't, you're a DFS player. Hey, all are welcome. I'm going to give you some takes on questions that we've got from our YouTube comments and from our Twitter feed. And it's going to be great. It's going to be really fun. But before we get into that, if you're new here and if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Yes, the fantasy season is over, but we have all kinds of off-season content that we'll be bringing you. Looks at rookies, some draft strategies, all kind of good stuff. And we may have some changes coming to the format of what kind of content we're rolling out. So you want to keep up with that. Subscribe with us here on YouTube and go check us out on Twitter at GrownUpFF or on Facebook, Grown Up Fantasy Football. We give you our takes on any breaking fantasy news, any NFL news, and we'll put some updates on what we're going to be posting about. So be sure to follow us there. And hey, I hope you had a happy holiday. And hey, Happy New Year. We survived the simulation of 2020. 2021 is here. And what better way to start off the year than winning your fantasy championship? So, with all of that out of the way, let's get into some start sit questions. And to start everything, I'm going to read to you a list of some players who are in or out, some notable fantasy players that we saw from Matthew Berry out on Twitter. So, at quarterback, some players that are out: Ben Roethlisberger, Jared Goff, Patrick Mahomes, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Someone notable who's in is Matthew Stafford. Running backs who are out: Alvin Kamara, Carlos Hyde, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Damian Harris, Dalvin Cook, Darrell Henderson, Frank Gore, James Robinson, Latavius Murray, and Miles Sanders. So running backs who are in: Gus Edwards and Mark Ingram. Wide receivers who are out: Brandon Ayuk, Christian Kirk, Cole Beasley, Cooper Kupp, Deshaun Jackson, DJ Chark, Golden Tate, Jakeem Grant, Julio Jones, Keenan Allen, Kenny Golladay, KJ Hamler, Tyreek Hill, and Sammy Watkins. Devontae Parker, however, is in. And tight ends: Dallas Goedert, Eric Ebron, Harrison Bryant, Hunter Henry, and Tyler Kroft are all out for this week. So a lot of big news. But let's talk about some start sit questions. So we got something on our YouTube channel, a comment about Tom Brady. Is he going to play the whole game, or are they going to pull him in the second half or so? So last week, Tom Brady got pulled after a historic first half against the Lions. And now he has another weak secondary to go against. It's Atlanta. The Bucs have their playoff spot, yes, but are they pushing for a better wild card spot? Potentially. The thing about the Bucs is they don't have the best pass defense, and Matt Ryan can move the ball down the field. Julio Jones is out. Calvin Ridley's in. I'm already projecting Ridley to have a big day against a weak Bucs secondary. So I think Atlanta keeps this game closer than the experts think. And I think Tom Brady's probably going to play at least to the third quarter. If it's close, then he's playing the whole thing. And I would still probably start Tom Brady with some confidence, unless, he's a surprise inactive, which I doubt that's going to happen. So I think you're safe with Tom Brady. Another one we got, Teddy Bridgewater versus Andy Dalton. This is a good one right here. Two, not the highest quarterbacks, but you've got some guys sitting like Mahomes, Roethlisberger, some other guys that are sitting. So these guys kind of rise a little bit up. So Teddy Bridgewater has been just good enough to get the job done. He's not winning all the games for the Panthers, but he's performed okay. And first year in the system, new offensive coordinator, they bring in Robbie Anderson, another new weapon. And he's going against New Orleans, who boasts one of the best defenses in the league. So, pretty tough matchup for Bridgewater. And then on the other side, you have Andy Dalton, who, as of late, has been playing a lot better. The Cowboys' offense has started to click a little bit more. We've seen everyone get involved, especially against Philadelphia last week. They're getting hot. Tony Pollard is playing well, along with Ezekiel Elliott. And the Giants, the numbers have not looked great against for quarterbacks playing against the Giants. But I think I have a little faith in Andy Dalton. The guy's a vet. Mike McCarthy has a very quarterback-friendly offense. So I think in terms of Bridgewater or Dalton, I would go Andy Dalton right here. I think he has a lot of potential, a lot of upside, probably higher upside right here. They're fighting for the playoff spot. The Panthers are not, they're just trying to play spoiler, if anything. So I'd probably go Andy Dalton over Teddy Bridgewater. Let's go Jalen Hurts or Kirk Cousins. So this is an interesting one as well. Jalen Hurts was fantasy gold when you plucked him off the waiver wire in the latter half of the season, and he was an absolute stud for you. Now he's up against Washington, who boasts a pretty great defensive line and overall pretty solid defense. Last week against Dallas, he struggled. We finally saw Jalen Hurts struggle this season, and he kind of came back to earth from his high 20 to a 30-point game, about 19 points last week. Against Washington, it's going to be, I think, tough sledding here. Dallas, their defense has been getting better, but they're not as good as Washington. Washington's a solid defense. And then you got Kirk Cousins on the other side against a very weak Detroit secondary, a very weak defense overall in Detroit. Kirk Cousins has been streaky all season. He's had games where he's really played very well. He's had games where he's played lights out. The thing is, Cousins has more to work with than Jalen Hurts does. With Miles Sanders out, you got Boston Scott coming in. Deshaun Jackson's out, but was Deshaun Jackson really a factor in the passing game? You still got Greg Ward, Travis Fulgham, Alshon. They're all not bad, but I would still take Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson over those. And plus, Dallas Goedert's out too. So I think it's a little more clear. Yes, Jalen Hurts has a rushing floor, but I think part of that rushing floor was helped a lot by Miles Sanders in the read option game. So I think right here, I would go Kirk Cousins. It's a better matchup. He's got better weapons. And I think I see Minnesota winning this game too. So I'd go Kirk Cousins. We got another quarterback question in the chat. Cole Kids, Ryan Tannehill or Josh Allen? This is a good one. Tough one right here. So Tannehill, I think, has the matchup right here against Houston, weak defense. And Tannehill, yes, they got pretty much shut down against the Packers. But it's a good matchup. Tannehill has shown he was in the MVP conversation at the beginning of the year, and he has the ability, and he's got weapons right here. Now take a look at Josh Allen on the other side. Josh Allen, I mean, he's in the MVP conversation all year. This guy has been dynamite. Stephon Diggs, pretty much uncoverable. Yes, Cole Beasley is out, which hurts, and Miami is a good defense. I think the talent is all over the place on Miami's defense. And the scheme is what really sets them apart. So this is a tough one. Allen or Tannehill. I really like Tannehill's matchup. I don't think it's going to be a huge, get out to an early lead, then sit on Derrick Henry and run him the whole game. I don't think we're going to see that. I think it's going to be closer to what we saw beginning of the year, the shootout that went to overtime, where Derrick Henry did ice the game at the very end and win it. But I think Tannehill could have another big day. However, it's really hard to sit Josh Allen playing this well. Look, the Bills look like possibly a Super Bowl team. I mean, if the defense can step it up, then on the level of the offense, then they could very well get to the Super Bowl. I think I would stick with Josh Allen this week. though Tannehill would be a great play too if you decide to go other ways. So thanks for submitting. Let's keep talking quarterbacks. Right or no? Hang on, we don't have a whole lot of quarterbacks left. Let's talk running backs. Cool kids, you got another one in the chat. Nick Chubb or DeAndre Swift? This is another tough one. Two very good running backs. One of them definitely has the matchup. DeAndre Swift should be very involved this game. Yes, Marvin Jones is active. Yes, Matt Stafford is active. But what we've seen with Matt Stafford is he's come out later in these past 2 or 3 games to injury. And what does that do? That they rely on the run even more. So I'm really looking forward to DeAndre Swift having a pretty big game here. And then you got Nick Chubb, who is on the Browns, a run-first team with a stud running back, but they're against the Steelers. Now, I don't think the Steelers are sitting any of their defensive players. I think they're sitting Roethlisberger, and that may be just about it. That's a tough matchup for Nick Chubb. And really to pick between the two, it's pretty tough. But I think I would probably go. Sounds crazy, but I'd go DeAndre Swift right here. The involvement is there. It's a better matchup. Yes, Nick Chubb is going to get his, but Pittsburgh is a very good defense. They can shut down a running back. If they want to make Baker Mayfield beat them, they could do that. So it's, Nick Chubb has the ability and has the talent. DeAndre Swift's pretty talented too, and he has, I think, a better opportunity to get involved in this game, even if Detroit gets behind. DeAndre Swift is one of the best players on that offense. They're going to have to use him. So I would probably go DeAndre Swift. Let's talk more running back. And Shonuff 04, what you got in the chat? Hey, I'm playing Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor today in the Super Bowl and leading by 10. Dalvin Cook and Tyreek left me for dead. That sucks. Dobbins or Gaskin today is an RB2 alongside Montgomery. I feel like it's going to be hard for Gaskins to put up 33 points again. Any fantasy player, when you just look at history. Good point. I have J.K. Dobbins scoring at least twice today also. So, a couple other questions we had was about Myles Gaskin a little bit. The thing about J.K. Dobbins, though, is Gus Edwards is one of the biggest vultures we've seen this season. He's been coming in on the goal line and taking all those touchdown runs for you. It's tough. The Bills defense, they're sitting a few players who are out, and they're still a good defense. I think Dobbins has the matchup right here. And I think you're right. When 33 points can come to any fantasy player, you've got a strong running back with David Montgomery against a good matchup right here. I think the Derrick Henry game against Green Bay was a fluke. I think you can count that out. I think Montgomery has a very solid day. And yeah, I think Dobbins is probably going to be the best bet out of those two. Plus, Gaskin is still fighting off Matt Breida in that backfield and a couple other guys who are getting snaps. So I don't think it's totally Gaskins right here. I think I'd go J.K. Dobbins with David Montgomery. I think that gives you your best shot. Thank you for submitting Shonuff04. Let's talk a little bit more running back. So here's one that we got not too long ago. Aaron Jones or Alexander Madison. So like we just heard, Dalvin Cook is out for today's game, which leaves Alexander Madison with the bulk of the carries. And then we got Aaron Jones up against Chicago. Tough matchup for Aaron Jones, and he's been kind of streaky in the later half of the season. Does he get you that 20-point game where he busts off the 80-yard touchdown run? Or does he just get a few carries here and there, a couple of targets peppered in, and gets you like a nice 7 to 8 to maybe 10 points? What do we see happening for Aaron Jones versus what do we see happening for Alexander Madison? So Madison has the better matchup right here, and that's pretty evident. But, looking at Alexander Madison, he really hasn't performed great all season. When Dalvin Cook has come out, he put up 13 points against Seattle with 20 carries, 112 yards, no touchdowns, though. And then against Atlanta the next week, he had 10 carries for 26 yards. And, he had 24 yards in the air against Seattle and 4 yards in the air against Atlanta. He hasn't been the super backup that we thought he would be. Everybody thought he was the ultimate handcuff along with Dalvin Cook just because of that offense. But I think a big part of that was Kevin Stefanski. When he left, some of that offense, it's not exactly the same run-heavy offense as it was last season. Plus, when you draft Justin Jefferson to pair with Adam Thielen, you're going to have to throw the ball some. Now, the matchup is good for Madison, but can you depend on him right here? I think in the championship, I think Aaron Jones is the safer play right here. Yes, it's a tough matchup, but he gets involvement between the 20s and even in the red zone. Aaron Rodgers is passing a ton of the time in the red zone, and Aaron Jones, a little wheel out of the backfield. That could be a touchdown right there. I think Aaron Jones is probably the better play out of these two. So I'm going to stick with Aaron Jones right here. Another one we got was Ezekiel Elliott versus Jeff Wilson Jr. And I'm going to pair this one with another one we had, which was Josh Jacobs, Zeke Elliott, Jeff Wilson, or Melvin Gordon. So all of these guys have something going for them in each of these matchups. Jacobs has the opportunity. He has a ton of carries each game. It's really hard to ignore that. Zeke, probably the most talented out of the four of these backs. He's incredibly talented. But he's not on the best offense for that. Jeff Wilson on a run-first offense right here. Raheem Mostert's gone. Jeff is taking the bulk of the work right here. And he proved me wrong last week with a 30-point game. Thanks, Jeff. And then Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon is the key right here. Great matchup. Phillip Lindsay, I think, is out right now. I think if I had to rank these four right here, I would probably play first Melvin Gordon, and then I would take a look at Jacobs and Wilson and Zeke. The only thing with Zeke right here, why I'm putting him so low, is because Tony Pollard exists. And if you, Troy Pollard, if you follow us on Twitter, Tony Pollard was incredibly efficient against the Niners a couple weeks ago. Zeke came back into the lineup, and it was kind of it wasn't an ideal split right here for Zeke. So it's not the best situation. I don't know if I can really trust him this week. I think the best play out of these four backs is probably going to be Melvin Gordon with the matchup. Even if he gets behind, I don't think the Raiders are going to march out to a huge lead on Denver. And plus, you got Drew Lock, who is going to check down a ton of time. So Melvin Gordon should have plenty of opportunity this game. I would definitely put him in my lineup. Here's another interesting running back play we got. Daare Gumbawale versus J.D. McKissick. So like we said, James Robinson's out. So Daare is stepping up. And last week, Daare Ogunbowale had a pretty good game. He had 17 of the 21 snaps and had pretty good chunky yards. Had a couple of targets in there too. But can you trust him this week against a very tough Indianapolis run D? And then you got McKissick against Philly. So earlier this week, I would have said McKissick, no doubt, definitely play him. Antonio Gibson hasn't practiced pretty much all week. However, he's active today. Also, Terry McLaurin is active today. So what do you do with McKissick versus Ogunbowale? I think McKissick has the safer floor here because of PPR. If you're a PPR league, McKissick is going to be a very good play, a very safe play. He gets a ton of targets just about every week. Now, Daare, see, what I'm predicting for the Indianapolis-Jacksonville game is Indianapolis gets out to a big lead and sits on Jonathan Taylor. I don't see Ogunbowale having a huge game this week. Now, I don't think they're going to fold and just run the ball on every down if they get behind. I think Ogunbowale is probably a running back 3. with low end 2 upside right here, but I don't see a whole lot of upside right here for Gumbawale. So I'm probably going to go Mckissick right here. Let's check the chat real quick. Here's one. Stephon Diggs, Allen Robinson, Adam Thielen, and Justin Jefferson. Pick 2. Studs right here. Now, in my rankings for wide receivers, I had Adam Thielen ranked second. And with a little bit of a caveat, and that was I didn't think Tyreek Hill was going to play, but I'd still rank him. And I didn't know if Stephon Diggs was going to sit or not. And I didn't think Devontae Adams was going to play a whole lot this week. However, Devontae Adams looked like he's locked and loaded to go, and Stephon Diggs as well. Tyreek is out, so you got to play Stephon Diggs. He's been lighting it up, so I'm definitely playing Diggs. And this is where it kind of gets tough. So Allen Robinson has arguably the safest floor out of any wide receiver in fantasy because of all the targets he gets peppered with from Trubisky. It's a tough matchup, though. He's going to have Jaire Alexander probably in his face all day. And can Allen Robinson get off of tight coverage? Yes, he can, but I think it's going to be 50-50 just about all day, especially with Trubisky, who's been playing hot, but it's still Mitch Trubisky, okay? Let's be real here. It's Trubisky. I don't think he has the biggest day ahead of him against pretty tough Green Bay defense. So I think it's between Thielen or Jefferson to pick right here. And the reason I have Thielen ranked higher is because of the red zone. Justin Jefferson will get you all the yards that you'd love to have, but Adam Thielen has 18 red zone targets, which is tied with Mike Evans for first in the league. Hard to ignore that in the red zone. Plus, no Dalvin Cook. Are they going to run the ball with Alexander Madison in the red zone? I think they're going to rely a little bit more on Thielen. So I'd go Diggs and Thielen right here. Cole Kids, thanks for submitting again. Charles, standard, pick one. Crowder, Hilton, or AB? Ooh, standard with Jameson Crowder, T.Y. Hilton, and Antonio Brown. Okay. So AB has probably, AB or Hilton has the better matchup right here. But the thing is, the target share in Tampa Bay is pretty wide open between AB, Godwin, and Mike Evans. So it's more about what you can do with those targets. And I think the best yards per reception goes to Chris Godwin out of those three. So AB is still a good play against a weak secondary, but I think the better play here may be between T.Y. Hilton or Jameson Crowder. I know it's crazy to say that. So Jameson Crowder is the number one on his offense. All right. Yes, it's the Jets, but look, they've been playing better as of late. Sam Darnold has been looking better as of late. The guy's playing for his job out there. And you have the number one wide receiver right there. And Crowder has been involved lately. He caught a touchdown against the Rams in their win against the Rams, and he threw a touchdown in their win against the Browns. Will Adam Gase be as creative with Jameson Crowder this week? To be seen. The thing is, he doesn't have Stephon Gilmore. He's got the McCourty brothers to deal with, but no Stephon Gilmore is pretty big without Jameson Crowder. Can they get to Sam Darnold? Probably. It's the Patriots, but it's not the same Patriots that we've been used to seeing. And then Hilton, I like T.Y. Hilton, and I want to like him a whole lot this week just because the matchup is so good. But the thing that worries me about T.Y. Hilton is the Colts could get up to an early lead right here and then sit on Jonathan Taylor and run him to death through this game, or Naeem Hines. So with Hilton, you're kind of hoping for an early touchdown and some yards at the first half right here. I don't see Jacksonville just competing I just don't see them competing in this game. So with Hilton, there's upside, but there's risk. With Crowder, I think there's safety. Plus with targets, he could get a ton. There's no Frank Gore. Are they going to run Ty Johnson or Michael P. Ryan a ton? Possibly, but the Jets could be behind, which is even better for Crowder. So I think out of these three, it's standard. I think Crowder is maybe the best bet out of these three. It's really crazy to think that, but it's 2020. Crowder over AB. It's crazy. Here we go. From Shownuff, A.J. Brown has the worst pass defense in the league, or Mike Williams versus a backup Kansas City squad. This is a tough one right here. I have A.J. Brown ranked 3rd in my rankings. Now, that's with Devontae Adams and Stephon Diggs being a lot lower. However, A.J. Brown, you're right, has the worst defense against wide receivers. It's a great matchup for him. And Mike Williams doesn't have Keenan Allen to depend on him versus the backups against Kansas City. This is tough because A.J. Brown can break off. I think the talent is on the side of A.J. Brown right here. And the matchups are very close. Yes, you have a backup squad. I think Justin Herbert's going to light him up. I think he makes a statement. I think he's going to try to win Rookie of the Year right here over if he hasn't already won it. And Mike Williams should be very involved against a backup Kansas City squad. A.J. Brown, I think it's going to be another shootout, though, with Houston. I think Tennessee doesn't have the best defense out there. That's no secret. Deshaun Watson's a great quarterback. It's really tough right here. It's really tough. But I think I'd still side with A.J. Brown in a really close one. The talent is really hard to ignore. He's been very efficient all season. It's close. I think Mike Williams does have a big day, but we haven't seen him. We've seen him explode and boom, but we've also seen him bust. I don't really see A.J. Brown busting in a very favorable matchup with what could be another shootout. So I'd probably go A.J. Brown right here. Let's talk kickers right here. Cole Kids, thanks for bringing that up. Cairo Santos, Younghoe Koo, Rodrigo Blankenship, or Tyler Bass. Okay, a lot of good kickers right here to choose from. So Santos has been kind of on fire lately. But do you trust the Bears offense to get going and get points against Green Bay? Not sure. Younghoe Koo has been one of the best kickers in fantasy all year. And then he goes and misses the game-winning field goal against Kansas City. As a Falcons fan, my condolences go out to you, Younghoe. And then Rodrigo Blankenship has been one of the most consistent players, one of the most consistent kickers for fantasy all season. And so has Tyler Bass. I was a Tyler Bass owner, and I was ecstatic about Bass. I think the thing you look at with kickers is the offenses and how good these offenses are. Are they scoring touchdowns every drive like the Packers? So that's why Mason Crosby is valuable, but not as valuable as some guys like Younghoe Koo or Rodrigo Blankenship or even Tyler Bass. If I had to pick one out of these 4 kickers, it'd probably be Blankenship. Just because of the matchup right here. I think Bass is another really good play because I do see Buffalo moving the ball, and Miami's a good enough defense to kind of keep people out of the end zone. But Blankenship has the matchup where it could be getting ahead early and then running the ball. You may not get those first downs around the 30 or the 40. Blankenship has the leg. He has the ability. I'd go Rodrigo Blankenship right here. Younghoe Koo, another good matchup against a weak Tampa Bay defense, but I think Atlanta scores in this game, scores touchdowns a little bit more than field goals. So I'd go Blankenship. Thanks for submitting again. So let's talk a little bit about wide receivers. We're about halfway through, so let's get into the receivers now. Here's one. T.Y. Hilton, Corey Davis, or Robbie Anderson. So I've talked a little bit about T.Y. and kind of what I'm afraid of with Hilton, but let's talk Corey Davis. So I talked a little bit about A.J. Brown, and I love the matchup, and I love the opportunity. And I also love Corey Davis in this matchup too. Corey Davis has caught 75% of his passes this season, which is crazy because Corey Davis has been, the ultimate. Is he a bust candidate now? But this season he's kind of had a resurgence, so maybe he's not totally an NFL bust this year. He's kind of playing in a contract year, I want to say, too. So maybe that had some effect on him as well. I do like Corey Davis this week. And then let's talk Robbie Anderson. So, Robbie, the thing that's going for Robbie Anderson right now is Mike Davis is out against New Orleans. So, Mike Davis was a PPR machine up there with JD McKissick as one of your waiver wire PPR guys. Those targets have to go somewhere. I think some of them will go to DJ Moore. Maybe one or two goes to Ian Thomas. But Robbie should benefit from this too. The thing about Robbie is, he was branded as this deep field threat that can, blow the top off a defense. And while he can do that, while he was in New York, he's shown in Carolina that he can be an intermediate to short route guy. So I do like Robbie Anderson. Now, is he going to have Marshawn Lattimore in his face? Yeah, you betcha. He'll have Lattimore on him. So that kind of caps him a little bit. I think he's a good wide receiver two, a high-end wide receiver 2 upside right here. But I don't think he has the consistency or the opportunity to get him into a very confident wide receiver 2. I think he's a low-end wide receiver 2 right here. And out of these three, I would go with Corey Davis. I think Hilton has the opportunity, but will Michael Pittman take some of those targets? Will tight ends take some of those targets away? Those early targets that I think will happen? Possibly. So Hilton has upside, but I think Corey Davis, like I said, could be a shootout with the Titans and Texans, and Davis has a lot of opportunity right there. We got another one in the chat right here. Do I think DK repeats his 40-point performance versus the 49ers today? I don't know. I don't know. And that's coming from a DK Metcalf owner. I loaded him into my lineup just about every week, and it's hard not to sit. It's hard to sit DK Metcalf. The guy's he's had these huge boom games, a 40-point performance, another 30-point performance, almost 30 points against the Vikings early. Do I think he repeats that performance? I don't know. I don't think so. I really don't think so. Richard Sherman's back for the 49ers. And lately, Seattle has been running the ball a lot more. So I'm a little worried about DK and a little bit about Lockett, too. I think Chris Carson has a pretty good matchup. They've been kind of reversing to their old run-heavy teams and play defense. And the Seattle defense has been great as of late. So do I think DK repeats that performance? No. It's hard to really predict those 40-point games anyways. But I don't think DK has that huge week-winning game this week again. Could he? Possibly. He's super talented, but I bet he doesn't. So good question, but probably not. Let's get another one in the chat. Lucius, I need 2 wide receivers and a flex. Godwin, Thielen, Metcalf, or Jeff Wilson. Okay, so I kind of talked a little bit about DK. I'm a little worried about this game. Adam Thielen, I think he's someone you need to start this week. He has so many red zone looks. No Dalvin Cook equals even more red zone looks. I don't think Madison's going to be a huge factor in this game. Yes, he'll get some touches, but will he be as productive as Dalvin Cook is? I don't think so. So definitely start Adam Thielen and either Chris Godwin or DK Metcalf. It's another close one. You got a really good matchup for Chris Godwin right here. He's been decently consistent. Thing going for him is his average yards per reception for him. And a flex, Jeff Wilson. So like I kind of just mentioned, Seattle's defense has been playing a lot better as of late. Jeff Wilson has the bulk of the carries, but can they stop Jeff Wilson? Can they stop the run? Jeff Wilson proved me wrong last week with a huge 30-point day. I think he's not going to get the 30-point day again. I don't think he gets that, but I still think he has a pretty good week. So I would probably go, it sounds crazy to say this, but I'd go Thielen, Wilson, and Godwin. I think I'd sit DK out of these guys. Godwin has a ton of opportunity right here. It's a pretty even target share among those wide receivers, but I think he has a lot of upside and a favorable matchup right here. So thanks for submitting, Lucius. Let's see, Godwin or Aaron Jones. I think full PPR from Darren Hopkins. Let's see. Chris Godwin, I just talked about. I think he has a lot of opportunity, and Aaron Jones, I've briefly talked about too. The matchup isn't necessarily there for Aaron Jones, but he has so much involvement in the passing game. It's kind of hard to look over that as well. Chris Godwin, it's full PPR. I think Aaron Jones is probably the safer play right here just because of his involvement in the passing game, his involvement in that offense. He's the number one running back right there. However, we've seen A.J. Dillon take some snaps, Jamal Williams, when healthy, take some snaps. But, that offense is going to move the ball. I can't see a day where Aaron Rodgers can't move the ball outside of that Tampa game. I think Aaron Jones has not a huge day, but a good day. I think Chris Godwin has a lot of opportunity there. The safer play is Aaron Jones, but the upside could be Chris Godwin. But I think if I had to choose one, I'd pick Aaron Jones right here. Thanks for submitting, Darren. Cole Kids, Montgomery, Jefferson, or Allen Robinson at the flex. I'm guessing this is David Montgomery right here. I'd go David Montgomery. Yeah, that's definitely start. David Montgomery's been a man on fire all the second half of the year when they started finally giving him carries. I think they're going to give him more carries. Probably Montgomery right here. Another one, Diggs or Godwin, excuse me. I just talked about Chris Godwin. I'm going to go Stephon Diggs. The guy is unstoppable. He's I think leading the league in catches, and he's right up there for yards, if not leading the league in yards. I'd go Stephon Diggs. Yeah, the matchup is a lot better for Chris Godwin, but Stephon Diggs has no Cole Beasley to take targets away. He's going to be the guy. Yes, he'll have Xavier Howard on him, but I really like Stephon Diggs this week. So I'm going to go Stephon Diggs right here. Let's talk. I think I already talked a little bit. Did I talk tight ends yet? I don't think I have. Let's talk about tight ends. So we got a couple in the chat. Real quick, do you think they'll give them enough time? That's a good question. Both of you guys, Show Enough and Yahir. I think that Diggs will get enough time because I think Miami's a good defense and they'll still keep the Bills a little bit in check. I don't think Diggs is going to have that 40-point game, maybe a 30-point game just from a PPR standpoint. But I think the Dolphins are a good defense. They're good enough to keep the Bills somewhat at bay. But I think Diggs comes away with a touchdown and probably a lot of yards. I think they don't get too far ahead to where they have to sit Stephon Diggs. There's always a chance they could sit him in the later half. But I think the Bills are aggressive and hungry. I don't think they're going to sit their best players just because of a chance for injury. I think that Diggs should have a pretty good game, and Godwin should too, but I'd go Diggs right here. Back onto the tight ends real quick. So we got some questions about George Kittle or Mark Andrews or Logan Thomas. So let's talk about these three guys real quick. Kittle has come back. He's back for your fantasy championships in week 17. So praise the fantasy gods. And the thing is about George Kittle, it's a favorable matchup against Seattle. And he's also got his college quarterback in C.J. Beathard playing with him. Is the chemistry still there? Quite possibly. Quite possibly. I like George Kittle this week. And then let's talk about Logan Thomas. So Logan Thomas has been getting a lot of targets lately. Lots and lots of targets. And that was with Dwayne Haskins, Taylor Heineke, a lot of inconsistency with the quarterback. Alex Smith was still in there too. And he's got a pretty good matchup against Philly. Now, is Logan Thomas the most consistent tight end? Not necessarily. As of late, he's been playing better. So I like that a lot about him. And then we've got Mark Andrews against Cincinnati, which is a fantastic matchup. Now, the Ravens are not really in any position that they were last year to sit Lamar Jackson, to sit Mark Ingram from last year, to sit Mark Andrews, any of these guys. They're playing. And I think the Ravens are playing with a chip on their shoulder, too. I think Mark Andrews probably has the best week out of these guys. Marquise Brown has not been as consistent enough to be the number one target on this team. Mark Andrews has had some consistency issues, but the talent is immense there for Mark Andrews. So if I had to rank these three tight ends, it's very close to the top, mainly because the 49ers do not have Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel, so Kittle should get all those passing targets. I think it's close here. I would go Kittle slightly above Andrews and then Logan Thomas below them. Let's see here. What else do we have? Some more wide receivers. Michael Gallup or Juju Smith-Schuster. This is a good one. Michael Gallup has been playing pretty well as of late, and especially last week. He went 6 receptions, 129 yards, and 2 touchdowns against Philly, which do they have a better defensive back than the Giants? No. Yes, even with Darius Slay coming in, Slay has not been the same self, and plus he's out now. So then you get the Giants matchup. James Bradberry is going to play. He's been reactivated off the COVID list, so he's in. Do I think Gallup gets a lot of James Bradberry? I don't think so. I think Gallup doesn't see a whole lot of James Bradberry. They'll move him around because there's 3 stud receivers. Well, 2 real stud receivers, and Gallup is an up-and-coming stud to cover. So I think Gallup has a pretty good day. And then you got Juju. Okay. Juju has not been the receiver we really thought he would be this season. Roethlisberger and the offense has struggled, and now Roethlisberger sits, and you've got Mason Rudolph in, who we're not totally sure what we're going to get from him. Now, is the revenge game a factor? It might be. It's the Mason Rudolph revenge game. But I don't know. I'm not sure what we're going to see from Juju and Mason Rudolph in this connection. I think there's a little bit of a stronger connection right here. So I'd probably go Michael Gallup right here over Juju. Here's another one. Myles Gaskin or Jeff Wilson? Tough one. Another tough one. Buffalo has a few people out. Like Tre'Davious White, for example, is out. So Devontae Parker might have a pretty good day here for Miami. And I don't see it being a blowout in the Miami or Buffalo game. Fitzpatrick for Miami is inactive. So Tua is going to play the whole game, most likely. What does that mean for Gaskins or Jeff Wilson? It's tough because Gaskins has talent, but he's still fighting off Matt Breida, Salvin Ahmed, and then you got Jeff Wilson, who is the lead back against what has been for the most of the season a weak Seattle defense. I still think Seattle's susceptible to the pass more than they are the run. This is a really tough one, but I think if I had to pick one of these guys, I would go with Jeff. It's tough because I like both of them a pretty good bit. But I think I'm a little higher on Jeff Wilson just because it's, Gaskin's still fighting off Ahmed and Breida. It's not a clear ownership of that backfield. And Jeff Wilson has upside. He has probably more opportunity than Gaskins will get. And, Seattle may be overrated, but the thing is they have been leading the NFL in points and points scored against. They've only allowed 13 points since like week 11, which is pretty good considering, how bad they've been lately. So I'd probably go Jeff Wilson over Myles Gaskin. It's a tough one, but thanks for submitting. Cole Kids, is Kirk Cousins going to have a good game today? I think he does. I really think he does. With Dalvin Cook being out, I don't think that makes the Vikings one-dimensional per se. Madison will still get some carries, but I think they're going to have a lot more success in the air against a weak Detroit defense, rather than on the ground. And plus, in the red zone, they're going to move the ball. If they get to the red zone, are they going to run Alexander Madison as much as they run Dalvin Cook in the red zone? Probably not. Adam Thielen has a ton of red zone targets, and you still got Justin Jefferson too. So I think he's got very good weapons right there. Kirk Cousins should have a really good day. I think he's a quarterback 2, a high-end quarterback 2 with quarterback 1 upside this week. Definitely. We got a few more. We got a little bit more time before matchups start. And I want to give you guys some time to finish setting your lineups. Here's a good one right here. Yahir. How do you think Brandon Cooks will do compared to like Diggs per se? Brandon Cooks has a lot of opportunity right here. When Will Fuller came out, Cooks has come along as, a real fantasy threat. He's definitely Deshaun's number 1 option right here. And he's got a very favorable matchup. Better matchup than Diggs has. But compared to Diggs, I still think Diggs has a better day than Cooks, but I think Cooks could possibly get right there, but I still put him right below Diggs. The thing is, I talked a little bit about, I think it's going to be somewhat of a shootout like the early season matchup between the Titans and the Texans, where Brandon Cooks was out that game, but Will Fuller had a monster game. So I think Brandon Cooks should have plenty of opportunity. He should have a really, really good day to make him probably a borderline wide receiver 1 on the week. If this matchup goes the way I think it will. You know what? Let's just go to the chat. I have a few more in here. I'll talk real quick about Chris Godwin or Terry McLaurin. It would have been easy last week or earlier this week when Terry McLaurin was sitting out of practice, but he's active right now. And Chris Godwin, we talked a little bit about, it's a good matchup right here. Terry McLaurin has a very good matchup too. Philly's pretty terrible, and Washington is fighting for that playoff spot. You got to have your best players on the field, and Terry McLaurin is easily one of, if not the best player for Washington. He's got Alex Smith back. Over Chris Godwin, though, I think I'd still go Godwin slightly over McLaurin. McLaurin's still battling a bit of an injury. He was questionable all up until about last night or this morning, where he got active. He was listed as active. So there's a possibility he comes out for injury. It's slightly possible, but I think the safer play may be Chris Godwin right here. All right, enough of the sheet. Let's go to the chat. Let's get you guys your answers to your questions before we start setting lineups. Melvin Gordon or David Johnson? Melvin Gordon is playing a very weak Raiders defense, and I'm pretty high on Melvin Gordon this week. Philip Lindsay, I think is maybe on IR, or he's not playing. So David Johnson instead against the Titans. Good matchups for both of these guys. Talent probably in favor of Melvin Gordon right here. And I think it's going to be a shootout with the Texans and Titans. So David Johnson could see some targets in the passing game. But do you want to trust David Johnson or do you want to trust Melvin Gordon right here? I think I'd rather trust Melvin Gordon right here. Weak Raiders defense. Both teams aren't playing in the playoffs this year. So I think it's a close game right here. I don't see the Raiders, pouring it on Denver. I think Vic Fangio is a pretty good D coordinator, so I don't think that the Raiders score a ton of points. And Drew Lock is going to have to check down. I mean, the guy can't throw downfield that very well. So I think Melvin Gordon should have a really good day right here. So I'd probably go Melvin Gordon over David Johnson. Thanks for submitting. Show enough. Do we have any more in the chat? You guys got any more questions? We're coming up until lineups are probably starting to lock pretty soon. So we got time for another one. Thoughts on Carson? I'm assuming Chris Carson, obviously not Carson Wentz, who was a healthy scratch. Chris Carson, I think he has a pretty good day today, and I think it goes off of volume. They've been running the ball a lot more than passing as of late, getting back to their old ways. And when they were in their old ways, Chris Carson was a pretty valuable, low end RB1, high end RB2 for all of last season and the season before. I think Chris Carson has a pretty good game. San Francisco's pretty good against the run, though. So I temper my expectations a tad right here. I think Chris Carson, with the volume he gets, I think he's probably a high-end RB2 with RB1 upside. Maybe low-end RB1 upside right here. It's a tough defense, tough matchup, but he should have a lot of volume right here. So Chris Carson should have a pretty good day. We probably got time for about one more question. If you guys have anything in the chat that you have anything you want to bring up, ready to win your fantasy championship right here. Hopefully we'll bring home the title. If not, I can talk a tad about defenses real quick. That's one thing you may not be thinking about. So we got Bucks, Packers, Bills, and Vikings. Who do we like out of these guys? So earlier in the week, Matt Stafford was listed as questionable, and I was pretty bullish on the Vikings. I think out of these defenses with Tre'Davious White out, I was a little bit bullish on Miami. I think you can probably play. It's tough with all these. You're kind of hoping for a mistake with the Packers for Mitch Trubisky to make some mistakes. It could help. It's tough right here. I think I'm not really trusting the Bucks right here. I think I would hope for a mistake with the Packers. DeAndre Swift should have a good game against the Vikings. And if Stafford stays in the whole game, then even more to worry about. And the Bills losing Tre'Davious White against a pretty competent Miami team that has Devontae Parker now. I'm fading a little bit, so I'd probably go Packers right here. Yuck. We got some more in the chat. Let's go. Gaskin or Swift, T.Y. Hilton or Antonio Brown. DeAndre Swift, definitely, and probably tough one. I think, Tom Brady is good friends with Antonio Brown. Let's go Antonio Brown over T.Y., which is crazy to say. I could see you starting T.Y. right here because of the early game upside, but I'd maybe go Antonio Brown here. You see me tilt live. Thoughts on the Washington defense? I think they had a good defense. Jalen Hurts has been playing really well, but he struggled against the Cowboys when they started bringing pressure. Randy Gregory came in. This is a dominant Washington defensive line and a kind of weak Philly offensive line. If they can get to Hurts, force him into mistakes, then they should have a pretty good week. I still like Washington, even though Jalen has been playing very well. So I think you can fire up Washington's defense. Plus, you're right, no Miles Sanders, so makes it even better. Packers or Bears defense? You can't play a defense against the Packers. I don't think so. So I'd go Packers over there. Anthony, what do you think about Alexander Madison this week without Dalvin Cook? So I think Alexander Madison, I talked a little bit about him before. I think Madison, is going to have opportunity, but he hasn't been great when he got the opportunity this season. Now, Dalvin Cook has been out like a couple of games early on this season. And Madison, his biggest game this season has been a 13-point game against Seattle in week 5. So not a big fan of what he could do against Detroit. Yes, it's a weak defense, but I think Kirk Cousins has the better game. I think they lean on the pass a little bit more in this game. So I'm not bullish on starting Alexander Madison right here. I think he has a decent game, but you could have some better pieces to start. I think J.D. McKissick has a better matchup if you're looking at him. Myles Gaskin may be about there. Jeff Wilson, I would start ahead of Alexander Madison. Melvin Gordon, I would definitely start ahead of Madison right here. But I think it's about time to start locking lineups. They're about to start coming in. So hopefully I gave you some good advice to win your championship right here. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to what is our last live stream of Start Sit Questions. Hey, feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. Be sure to hit it. We've got off-season content. Me, Zach, and James are going to be putting out some off-season content about rookies, about draft strategies, all that good stuff. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any of that. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at GrownUpFF. We'll be putting out anything that happening in the NFL, contract negotiations, anything like that. We'll try to cover it and give our fantasy take on that. And any of the exciting content that we're bringing you, we're mixing up some stuff. So it may not be the same format you've been seeing from us lately, but we'll be putting some new content out together. So be on the lookout for that. But hey, it's time to go win your matchup. It's time to go win your league. Okay. And if you're a DFS player, it's time to go win some money. So be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to grow up and be sure to get guffed.